you may be going through an awakening, and this may have affected your body. It may have affected your perception of reality. It may have affected your spiritual growth. But what I don't hear being talked about that much is the profound effect it has on a person's relationships. Relationships are a huge part of our human existence. So once you have awakened, your relationships are not going to be the same, because you are rapidly accelerating, which will demand change. It will demand refinement, and it can provoke a lot of unique challenges, but it can also produce a lot of unexpected blessings. You may be experiencing relationship turmoil right now, which is something that isn't often talked about. But another thing that isn't often talked about is that this can generate a period of improvement or growth in a situation where you were previously struggling. And then some people may become triggered by your change. They may feel threatened by your growth, because an awakening isn't something that just affects you in a spiritual sense. It will change how you show up in your life. You will awaken to your purpose. You will be able to discern what is your highest path, and you will start walking on it. But the reality is that most people don't change. Most people have given up on their dreams. Most people don't actively pursue growth and transformation. So when someone in their life who for a long time has been a certain way suddenly starts to do that, it's much easier to bring you back down, to tear you down, to judge you, to criticize you. Whether it's obviously or in some minor undermining comment that you can decode quite easily, than it is for them to look at themselves. It's a crabs in the bucket mentality. The higher you attempt to soar, the more crabs will come out of the woodwork. But you shouldn't let it affect you, and instead have compassion for it. Because it tells you everything you need to know about those people. But in the beginning, when this first started happening to me, I used to get so frustrated because it was very confusing. I couldn't understand why someone would do that. And then I've experienced it on the other end, where I've seen certain people doing certain things that triggered me, and I was able to see that I have my own resistances that sometimes come up. I have my own inadequacies thrown in my face, as someone else is soaring in their life. And it just so happens to coordinate with the time of my life where I'm struggling. So I can see the temptation to pull people down. I see how people get wrapped up in it. I see how it dominates their focus and attention. I see how some people might be willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater in order to indulge in some short-term desire, because they struggle between willpower and immediate gratification, and they can't resist it. They need it. They want it. Now, I can't recall a time in my life where I have ever chosen to do it, but I understand that the feelings can be very strong. When your unlocked aspects of yourself are raised to the surface so abruptly, and in the presence of someone who is doing something that deep down you'd like to be doing. So I know it can take a lot of effort to not pull them down, even a little bit. I know it can be hard not to want to put your little 2 cents in, and give them your perspective or advice which they never asked for. So I can imagine that for someone who hasn't been taught how to meditate, or how to do any kind of inner work, they would just unconsciously react to it. But it is evidence of where they are in their life. It is a demonstration of their lack of character and ability. Because the people who are actually leveling up in life aren't leaving negative comments. People who are high-level athletes, or people who are doing big things in the world, or someone who's just satisfied with their life, such as a happy father with a family. They're not going to be going online to leave clever, negative comments. They don't do that. The people who do that are the ones who are suffering. And when they do this to you, you don't have to avoid it. You don't have to hold yourself down to spare them that moment of looking at themselves. And it doesn't mean it's not going to sting when it happens. But the best thing to do is just to be patient, understanding, and compassionate. And also be grateful for what you have. Remember, there's people in this world who don't know when their next meal is going to be. There's people who don't have any limbs. There's people who have nothing better to do other than to pull other people down to their level. And they have to live with themselves every day. You don't have to be that way. You have things to feel grateful for. You have things to look forward to. They don't. Their lives are miserable. They don't have anyone to talk to. There's no one who is ever going to understand the real them. Just imagine how lonely that must feel. That no one will ever truly understand their distorted worldview. So you don't need to judge them. They're already judging themselves. And that is what they project onto you. Which is how sometimes it may affect you. And you should protect yourself from that. Because some people aren't going to be in favour of your evolution. Some people might be triggered. So if you're sharing your dreams, your ambitions, your spiritual insights with these types of people, you're really just setting yourself up. Because they're not rooting for you. They're only thinking about how they can tear it down. They are never going to understand you. They are never going to be happy for you. When they see you working, performing a task, being employed at a job, being in a functional, operational state, in a functional system, it confuses them. It doesn't make any sense. They don't get it. And they don't want to get it. You can try explaining it to them, and it will go in one ear and out the other, because it doesn't fit with their reality, with their worldview. They would have to unlearn everything they think they know. They would have to accept uncomfortable feelings about themselves, unsettling things that they may have experienced in their childhood, and it would affect their relationships with people. So sometimes it's much easier for them to just not listen, and to pretend that they've already got everything figured out. And anytime they see you trying to climb higher, which then exposes everything they're trying to deny about themselves, they try to pull you back down, because that's where their comfort level is. They just can't accept it, that they took the wrong path. It's too degrading. It's too humiliating. It's much easier for them to view it as a source of power and control, than to admit the monsters that they have become. And this is why if you ever confront them on it, it's like nothing is wrong with them. They're perfect. And then maybe you get mad. You get confused. You start questioning why they're doing that, and why they don't feel bad about it. But this is why. It's all just a compensation for their own insecurities. Deep down, they feel worthless and inadequate. The difference with you is that, while you may have insecurities of your own, you know better. You're wise, more experienced, more mature. So they manipulate you and gaslight you, and try to make a fool out of you, to get you to do something wrong. When you're confident and self-assured, they don't like that. So they don't take it seriously. They treat it as a joke. Because your confidence, wisdom, and experience is a threat to their control. And once they attack these things in you, you begin to see them as the authority. You start trying to please them. But they are not meant to have any authority over you. If they were, then things would probably get a lot better for you. But instead, things get a lot worse. When you overextend yourself, when you say yes when you really mean no, it eventually catches up with you and causes trouble or negative consequences. And that is why you may prefer to keep people at a distance, because relationships can be dangerous. They can make us feel vulnerable. And most people have already been betrayed more than one time. So it's understandable that you might want to keep people at a distance. But when you're going through an awakening, you may begin to outgrow these defense mechanisms, where you see more than ever before how foolish it is to be a people pleaser, or how painful and lonely it is when you keep everyone at arm's reach. Relationships can be the most challenging aspect of the spiritual awakening journey. You may experience a lot of pressure with people, but then you have to recognize that you may have attracted those people. It may be a co-creation of drama. Even if you are just trying to stop it from happening, you're still feeding it. What works better is to speak about how you feel about something, instead of bottling it up. Because what you resist persists, and eventually you will be unable to contain it. And you may then project it onto someone else, just as other people may have been doing to you. Which is why it is better to speak up. It is better to speak your truth. Because otherwise, if you're saying yes to things when you really mean no, and you're going along with things that you don't really want to be involved in, it is gradually changing you, whether you like it or not. But if you speak your truth, your relationships will evolve, and the people who haven't evolved with you will fall away. Because when they can't keep up, it will create distance, which can create a void and loneliness. But then you start to recognize people who function more effectively in relationships. Now you're aware. You're able to perceive and attract higher level relationships, and you wouldn't have noticed them before, because of the people you were surrounded by. But once you start doing the inner work, you will attract other people who are doing the same thing, because you'll notice each other. It puts everything into a new order or arrangement, until you find yourself in relationship harmony, which is an amazing thing. Because what does really matter? It's the experiences we have with other human beings. The laughter, the joy, the sorrow, all of it. There's something very real about relationships. But unfortunately, most people out there are really not aware of how to be in a relationship. Whether it's with a friend, a lover, a co-worker, a business partner. But the awakening will teach you where you need to work, as long as you're willing to look at yourself. Because if you can grow, adapt and change, you will begin to find other people who are on that exact same frequency. And that can be the greatest blessing of your awakening. You may find that you start to demand honesty. You can no longer tolerate dishonesty, where people are feeling one thing and saying another, or even what they're wishing for or what their motive is. You start seeing through all of that, which can be disappointing at times. Because maybe you once thought that certain people weren't being honest, but now you're able to perceive people's truth more clearly. So you start making adjustments to protect yourself, because you may discover that some people are being dishonest. Some people have invaded your privacy. Some people have stolen things from you. And these could be people who you may have known for years. It is a part of the awakening. It will bring you experiences that provide you with this clarity of where you stand with people. But of course, you should sever ties with them. You can never trust people like that ever again. Of course, this isn't about being mean or cold. It may be quite a sad or distressing experience for you, but you will recognize that it is something you have to do. And there is something powerful about setting boundaries. Because when you tolerate things like that, you're saying to the universe that this is okay. It's okay for people to treat other people like this, because you're allowing it to happen. But when you sever ties with these types of people, your expectations for how other people show up will raise as well. You will start to attract people who won't do that to you. And as you work on your relationships, it helps you work on your relationship with yourself. Because how we treat other people, or how we let other people treat us, or what we tolerate from other people or from ourselves, all of these things are interconnected. It is all part of one system, where each component is dynamically tied together. So a change or event in one part of the system directly impacts or influences the others until it forms a unified network or relationship. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Your habits, integrity, and attention to detail in small tasks mirror your overall approach to life. So just by changing one thing, it can change your overall life. And now that you have awakened, new, more aligned relationships will begin to appear. It may not have happened yet, and right now you may be experiencing a lot of drama. But eventually you will meet someone who understands the challenges, someone who understands the excitement, someone who is on the same level as you are, someone who resonates. It just takes time to go through the process of wondering why people did certain things, wondering why you're feeling this way, wondering why it's getting so intense, the void and the loneliness, to the point where you may feel hopeless, the point where you give up. But if you stay the course and you don't cave in, you will pass the test and everything will begin to improve. I hope this video was helpful for you today. If it was, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to be notified when I upload new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.